This is TWiT.
The hackers who breached Sony Pictures, stole gigabytes of data, then destroyed that data, warned the company 3 days before the attack about the coming attack. An email sent to Sony Pictures CEO Michael Linton, Chairman Amy Pascal, and other executives demanded money. Pay the damage, they said, or Sony Pictures will be bombarded as a whole. Weird language. The email was signed as God's Apostles, a phrase found inside some of the malware used in the November 24th attack. In related news, the hackers warned Sony Pictures yesterday to pull the Seth Rogen and James Franco comedy The Interview from circulation, saying, quote, "Stop immediately showing the movie of terrorism, which can break the regional peace and cause the war," unquote. Hey, we all hate James Franco, but I don't think it's terrorism. Come on. Lorenzo Franceschi-Beccarai, who co-authored the story for Mashable with Christina Warren, joins us now. How's it going, Lorenzo?
Hi, Mike. Thanks for having me.
I'm so glad you're here. And I gave a version of the pronunciation of your name, the American version, which has to be a little sloppy around the edges. That's just how it is, man. This is the United States of America, and we pronounce things like that. So sorry about that. Quick question for you. The hackers demanded monetary compensation to prevent, quote, great damage. Did they specify an amount? Are they really serious about this sort of blackmail, or were they just throwing that threat out there?
Yeah, they didn't specify any amount, and we were not able to find any other emails prior to that one. And that doesn't mean that there were not other emails. You know, they might have sent an email to somebody else that was not, whose email has not been leaked yet. So in that email, there was definitely no specific amount of money. Whether they're serious, I mean, it's really hard to tell at this point. Like, you know, any of the threats that they've made after the hack, I think should be taken less seriously, because at that point it was public and, you know, in the news. So these hackers could be, so to speak, trolling us. But that email, I tend to take it a little bit more seriously, because it was sort of a private email directed only at Sony. So I think that could give us some hints to the real motives. They might really wanted money.
Hey, Lorenzo, is there any new evidence or proof that these hacks came or involved North Korea, or is that just a theory, and maybe a theory that is declining at this point?
Yeah, so far there is no more evidence. I mean, the only evidence that we found so far, and you know, this is obviously with a caveat that the only people that really know exactly all the evidence that's been left after the hack are Sony itself and Mandiant, the company hired to clean up the mess and investigate the hack. But some evidence has been published around, because other security companies have been going through the malware samples that have been published and shared with them. And based on that, the only evidence that links to North Korea is the fact that some of the malware was compiled on a machine compatible with the Korean language. Some security researchers say that that's an easy thing to fake, and some attacker could easily have planted that evidence just to throw us off. Other than that, you know, we have the claims of the hackers, but you know, in some messages, like the one yesterday that Mike mentioned, they asked for the interview to not be released. But in other messages, in multiple other messages, they never mentioned North Korea. They never mentioned Kim Jong-un, and they made more vague, references to Sony acting in in an evil way, and talking about how this is basically revenge. We don't know exactly for what. So at this point, I mean, in my opinion, the North Korean theory is still pretty thin, and it might actually, as you said, like be less convincing after yesterday's revelation that they asked for money 3 days before. Because why would North Korea ask for money, right?
Pretty much North Korea asks for money all the time. That's what they do whenever they threaten people with nuclear annihilation. But Sony isn't going to be able to provide that kind of money. So in light of this news, I have a new theory. Malicious hackers oftentimes hack things, and then they pick some cause. Sometimes they're legitimate hacktivists who hack because they genuinely believe in a cause. That's why they're doing the hack. A lot of times, though, hackers try to get into breach any system they can, and after they've done so, they don't want to just say, "Oh, we hacked for no reason." They want to say, "Oh, you know, we're blaming you for this, that, and the other thing." And that's what it sounds like in this case, because there was no mention of North Korea before the attack, but then after, with all the press, now they're playing it up, talking about the movie, all that kind of stuff. It sounds to me like they hacked Sony Pictures because their security was horrible, as we've seen in the subsequent reports. They just had no security. They had all the passwords in a file labeled passwords, that sort of thing. And then, you know, so it was easy to hack. They did the hack, and then there was all this press about the North Korea theory, and then after that press hit, that's when they started playing up the North Korea angle, for laughs. What do you think of that theory? Is that plausible?
Yeah, I would like side with you on that theory. I still believe that there might be some monetary motive. Maybe they didn't really want money, but they tried. Well, we can try. Maybe they'll give it to us. And as you said, probably they just wanted to break into things because they could, and it was easy. There's still like the theory that maybe they had an insider who was for some reason, angry at Sony. But mostly, yes, like the North Korea theory just sounds like after all the attention that they got and the theories were thrown around, the hackers started like just playing with us. You know, like there was actually another thing that we mentioned yesterday in a story was a tweet directed at a freelance writer that writes for The Guardian and other publications. And he received an email from the hackers with the email was signed North Korean Cyber Army. And it included also a message in Korean that didn't make any sense. Like it was Korean, but it was like jumbled, not in the right order. So it didn't seem like it was coming from a North Korean speaker.
Hey, Lorenzo, what about Sony's history with Sony PlayStation Network? Now, that network has had crashes before. I think it's had security incidents before. Could this be a case of the hackers had already been familiar with how to hack the PlayStation Network and then basically went after the broader Sony?
It could be, but at the same time, like Sony Pictures Entertainment, which is the Sony company that's been hacked in this case, is like separate. As far as I know, and their networks are separate. They're actually separate companies. So like that's possible. Like it's possible that the attackers who have been going after Sony PlayStation are the same, but it seems like it's a different kind of attack because as far as I know, all the PlayStation attacks have been mostly denial of service to take down the network and deny people from connecting. Whereas here, it seems like it's an intrusion that happened at least a few weeks before the actual hack became public. The hackers stole a lot of documents, and then after their demands were not met, assuming they actually wanted them to be met, they released this destructive malware that destroyed the entire systems.